How's it brewing, everyone? Coffee Bean here for what should be the last of the Datazation series. I thank you guys so much for all of the support that you've given me throughout the series and everything. And I'm kind of sad that it's coming to an end. And I also feel kind of odd about switching the format for the last video. I'm actually taking all the final bosses, and typically I'll do the winning run and then I'll show certain moves and kind of how I dealt with them. Instead, I'm only going to show the final run and I'll just break it down as it happens. I felt like talking about particular moves after you've already seen the fight was good and informative wise, but I felt like it wasn't as interesting and just a less entertaining YouTube video. You know, like all the pauses and cuts, and it just wasn't feeling right for me. So I decided to cut that out and I'll just kind of break down the moves as they happen. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the slightly different format, and I'll catch you after the intro. So to kick us off today, we're going to be starting with Terranort. And a lot of bosses can be pretty irritating, you know, like they all have their own unique mechanics and everything. But I've got to say, Terranort was definitely made, like, with irritation in mind. He's got a lot of ranged moves, and then he also has a good set of, like, unblockables. Typically, most of his like keyblade swings and whatnot, they'll have combos that will start with an unblockable move. The Shadow Heartless that fights with them, that also has moves that, as far as I know, they cannot be blocked, which isn't a terrible thing. Honestly, like that wasn't even the worst part, except for that you couldn't really like lock on to both of them, and the Heartless that follows, he doesn't have a health bar, so it's not like you could like take him out first and then focus on Terranort, but like you just had to watch him. So being locked on to Terranort, typically you would be able to see the shadow, I think it is just called shadow, when it pops up. And maybe like 8 times out of 10 I would actually catch it, but when I missed it, it was typically devastating. I lost a lot of good runs to Shadow, and yeah, Terranort just has a lot of moves that will space. So he'll kind of go at you consecutively twice, and then he'll pause and wait on the third attack, which is pretty standard, but every time I run into it, it always catches me off guard, regardless of whichever boss it is. But he primarily will use Shadow to kind of get you into a position where you're more on the defensive side, because again, you can't attack Shadow. And then he'll follow up with either his Keyblade combo or the little Shadow Blast that he's doing now. The Shadow Blasts aren't that bad because you can reflect them back and you can combo off of it. The Keyblade attack isn't horrendous because it is unblockable typically at the start. I believe he has 2 different ones, one that will be blockable, one that is unblockable. It's not the worst move in the world. Honestly, again, like I feel like this fight was way more against Shadow, kind of setting up a combo, and then Terranort kind of coming in at the end to finish off like the last hit or so. But you'll notice Terranort's Keyblade when he starts a combo is red, and then the red fades away. As long as it's not red, you can block it. I think, so I guess I was wrong. All of his combos start out unblockable, and then they become blockable at the end. But he has one that is this one, which is entirely unblockable. Typically I would just heal through it, and it worked out pretty well. You basically spam dodge for like most of the fight. You'll notice in other fights I typically get a form change or something. You can kind of tell like, okay, that's when a fight is getting spacey, is when you never get a form change. Because that kind of tells you that, hey, you know, you're getting in combos every now and then, and you're actually being able to consecutively deal damage. I think there's like a minute gap or so in the fight where I just deal like basically no damage to him. But yeah, he does really attack relentlessly. That's part of the reason why, again, I was struggling to get those form changes, because the attack just like kept coming and coming and coming, and I did make a mistake there. I definitely meant to go into ultimate form, and I panicked and I just pressed the button. I don't know if maybe I could have finished the run sooner had I gotten the right one, but luckily enough, Rage Form has a semi-decent dodge to it, and it's got iframes in certain moves, wrist charge, so I could use that and finish off with a heal, because I did get my magic back after switching into that form. So it wasn't a complete waste, but I did, you know, use ultimate form, which has the best offense. Okay, maybe not the best offense. It's got really good offensive capabilities and defensive, but I was definitely ready to lose the fight right there as he was using, again, the unblockable move. And I was like, okay, this is it. I don't have any more openings for attacks, like, I'm just done. But I somehow managed to clutch it up, and I didn't get killed. Like, I was really surprised. But all in all, Terranort was I wish he could have been a more enjoyable fight, because I really loved fighting him in Birth by Sleep. But I felt like the two fights were really hard to compare together because they were so different from each other. And while I did enjoy this fight, I definitely preferred to fight him in Birth by Sleep. I'm gonna be honest, this win against Terranort felt like I kind of just lucked out, but hey, a win is a win. On to the next boss. Moving on to Vanitas, I've gotta say, this last round of bosses has to be like one of the toughest set of bosses. Like, I wish I had done them in a slightly different order, because doing these like back to back can drive you crazy. It was actually, you'll see certain parts of the fight where like it'll jump around a bit, because there was just so many, like, I guess particle effects and whatnot, that it was like lagging out my computer. But Vanitas loves projectiles and disappearing. I really thought that he was going to be way more in the combat of, like, you'll see how he's teleporting now and attacking. I thought that was going to be a lot more of the combat, but it seems that they really prioritized him more for keeping his distance and hitting you with unblockables. Those ice blasts cannot be blocked. Or the Keyblades, you can block his fire. I believe everything else. He'll do like the beam charge, the beam slash with his sword. I believe that they can be blocked early on, but in his second phase, they can't be. And yeah, I don't know, like, personally, again, I've played Birth by Sleep, so I fought him in that game as well. And he definitely attacked way more up in your face. Like, he also used a lot of the fire vortex where he'll disappear underground and reappear and shoot fire up in the air. But his combat seemed way more in your face in that game, and I don't know if that's because, you know, magic and abilities were so different in that one compared to this one, but this is the first time where I actually, like, fully opted to use a different Keyblade, and that was because of magic. This is the first time I was struggling to heal due to the unblockable attacks. I was trying to dodge them, but I didn't realize that one of my air movement skills was set for, I think it's called Air Slide, which allows you to air dodge in short distances. And because it's a short distance, you can do it more frequently, but you can't dodge certain attacks as well. So by unequipping it, you actually get a further air dodge, and that would have helped me out so much more. You'll also notice I used Thunder there when I saw the Keyblades appear. Thunder can actually cancel out the activation of that move, which is also why I wanted to have magic constantly ready and available. So in this fight, it was definitely, yes, I did use the ultimate weapon, but I definitely opted to have I can't remember what the Toon Keyblade is called. The Toon Gear, I'll just call it. I definitely opted to have that more at the ready, more constantly through this fight, because if I could stop the Keyblade wave riding, then I could also stop the unblockable ice, which means I don't have to heal as often, and it also opens to a combo after.
And that one seemed easy enough, but just a side question, can someone explain why under his mask Vanitas looks like Sora?
By finishing off Terranort and Vanitas, I was finally given access to the final 2 bosses of the Datazation. Also, have you liked and subscribed yet? You should. Kingdom Hearts has never been afraid of making your last set of bosses actually terrifying to fight. Against Xion, she had such a large amount of moves. She had so many moves, and the capability of comboing them together was insane. She has crazy long Keyblade combos that she'll do with a super armor against you. She'll throw the Keyblade at you. She'll drop these lasers from the sky, and they're not exactly random, but they can come almost out of nowhere. And they also drop your max HP. So that means that the skill that I have that leaves you with 1 HP left, she will drop you to 1 HP. So you cannot withstand a combo if you only have 1 HP. Which it doesn't entirely negate that ability. So it's still doable. But it does make it very tough if you get hit a lot by those lasers. So that was my main focus, is don't get hit by the lasers. There are a couple ways you can cancel out the health down debuff. You can do a form change, or you can use an elixir. Either of those an elixir will restore your health and it will increase the gauge. A form change will increase your health gauge back to normal, but you still have to heal after. Which is actually not that bad. It's a pretty good deal. And that's part of the reason why I opted to switch from the Ultima weapon to Oblivion, is because Oblivion has 2 possible form changes. And so I was like, okay, by increasing how many form changes I can get, and by not dropping I think Oblivion might actually have a better DPS than Ultima weapon. I'm not sure. Someone has to fact check me on that one. But it definitely helped to save me in those situations where I was like, okay, I've taken a bit of a drop, but it's not so much that I have to be nervous, but I would feel more comfortable using a form change, but not wasting the potential for massive damage. So I could go into the first form of Oblivion, and then I could slowly chip away at getting into the second form if I had time. But it was definitely a fun fight. I enjoyed it. Yes, it was tough. It was crazy hard because she had so many different abilities that, like, most times when it came to her ultimate move, I was just like dodging, 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 but it wasn't the sort of like mashing dodge. It was definitely a well-timed dodge out of moves, which is something that I did appreciate out of this fight. Is that I did feel like I wasn't just mashing the dodge in any direction, just doing anything, but it did feel more calculated and intentional. But even though she had so many different settings and like mechanics and such, she definitely felt fair. Yes, she would take your HP and everything, but even when it came to moves being unblockable, they didn't seem to combo so much to the point to where like you wouldn't be able to get out of it in some shape or form. But that might just be because, I'm biased. I love the Roxas fight, and that's what this reminded me of. So, take this with a grain of salt, but I thought that it was executed very well, and yeah, one of my favorite boss fights. With Shion defeated, I could finally move on to the last and final boss of the Datazation challenge. Xehanort. And the last boss in all of the Datazation is none other than old Xehanort. He was a handful. I finally remembered to switch my air dodge so that I had the further distance. That was something that was, in my opinion, it is mandatory to beat him. He has a lot of moves where you need to cover a lot of distance really fast, and Sora doesn't have a lot of moves that get you really far really quickly. Something like Quick Run in Kingdom Hearts 2 would have been the perfect move on the ground, but they don't have something like that. Glide is too slow to really get out of the way as fast as I need it to. But all in all, not Terranort, Xehanort was... It wasn't so much that the fight was really hard, but he had a lot of things that kind of time you out from dealing damage, because he would just not be in the realm, I guess is what I would say, or in range. So there's so many moves of his where he'll just disappear into, a key door, and then he'll reappear. But when he disappears, you're like, oh, like there is no way you can deal damage. He'll shoot lasers at you and such, and he'll, do these different attacks, and you're like, okay, that's not that big a deal. But he's not there for you to, even try to get a punish off of it. So you're just like, okay, I'll just sit and wait until he comes back. So I feel like I could have beaten him faster, but with all of the, shooting of lasers, and I believe he's got 2 or 3 cutscene sort of things in the fight. After you get so far in the fight and you have to watch those cutscenes, you have to sit through those attacks. This is one of them now. And you're kind of just going like, yeah, that one's pretty short, but I think he has another one that's also a couple seconds. It really adds up when each attempt you're getting to this point or further, and you just have to keep, pausing and watching those go on, and you're like, okay, at this point I want to beat you. Like, your health is dropping super fast, you aren't really that tough as long as, I dodge relatively well. He has a couple moves that will combo into a stun, sort of. I guess the combo technically breaks, and then he'll attack you after. So you will die if you don't heal after the combo. But for the most part, like, he really was not that tough. He does have moves that would burn you and freeze you, I think there is another something that I think he has a move that will drop your health as well. I can't remember, but the freezing one was annoying because he would kind of throw it out pretty much at random. But you can stop it as long as you just block it. You'll block it and it reflects back at him. It's not that big a deal. But all in all, like, yeah, he was just kind of like trial and error. You kind of go, okay, I can dodge through this move. I can't dodge through that move to start a combo. But yeah, all in all, like, I wouldn't say that it was boring. I would say that it was interesting, but it definitely was not one of my favorites. It just seemed more like he needed a gimmick, and they just kind of threw things that you wouldn't think of into the fight. And it was just like, all right, that's good. But yeah, unfortunately, he wasn't one of my favorite fights. I thank you guys so much for sticking around through the series of the Datazation breakdown. It has been really fun going through all these videos. And
where are you?
Wait, did you hear that? No. I said I was done, and that's it. That was all of the bosses, so I'm good to stop. Ah, you've got to be kidding me. There's more. I hope that was some pretty good YouTube acting. Yes, I knew that Sora was still there, but he is going to be the next in the actual final video. I know he's not technically a part of the Datazation, but he was in the song that I made, so I figured, alright, you've gotta be a part of this then. You're in the DLC, you're the final big boss. I've gotta show this off. And I'm gonna be honest, I did kind of a bit of a challenge for myself. I'm not the greatest Kingdom Hearts player, so like for other players, I'm sure this is, you know, next to nothing. For people who have done the fight, you know, damage list at level 1. But this for me was kind of a testament, an ode to my skill and like challenging myself. Even though I tried to break the challenge and skip past it, and I still lost until I came back and tried the challenge again. It was definitely a journey worth taking, and I hope you guys enjoyed that video whenever I get around to making it. But okay.